If we would all take your seats, we are going to get started on our third legislative briefing of this year. We are very fortunate to have Senator Randy McNally here with us this morning, one of our own rock stars in the legislature. And we were supposed to have this a couple of weeks back, I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago, but we actually didn't adjourn until the day we had it scheduled. So now we have up to date on the budget in particular and other issues. So we would love for you to ask questions of the senator when he finishes his presentation. Very much like to thank AT&T, who's been our sponsor of these legislative briefings, and I want to call Alan Hill, who's the Director of External Affairs for AT&T, to come up and introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Susan. Sometimes when I call people within the company and I say, I'm in external affairs, sometimes I'm concerned that they think I'm not in internal affairs, like an internal auditor, So anyway, sometimes. But good morning, and this is our third of our series, ending it this year for our legislative briefing series, and AT&T's proud to be a sponsor again this year, as we have had several, because we think it's important to have dialogue between our state elected officials and business community to have the give and take that we do. We're going to have plenty of time for that today. Before I introduce Senator McNally, let me just say, as I like to do always, give a couple of tidbits about AT&T and technology news that's going on. First of all, you might have heard, as Dana just reminded me this morning, she heard on the radio a commercial about us about getting a #1 recognition. Did anybody here heard about a #1 ranking? You know, we're talking about this is football, basketball fan about #1 rankings. Have you heard about a #1 ranking that AT&T got recently? Anybody besides that? But what that was Root Metrics, an independent analyst firm across the country that does an analysis of cellular networks across the country, did an analysis. In the last analysis they did in the nation, first of all, in 77 markets they looked at, AT&T was ranked the highest performer about data transmission speeds on the mobile internet. And so we ranked #1 in terms of speed with our LTE network nationally. But not only nationally were we ranked that, but also in Knoxville and Memphis and Nashville so far on individual tests. So here for transmission of data and other applications, when they did all the analysis, independent study, we were ranked #1. So you might have seen in the News Sentinel, we've been running this ad the last several months about AT&T is #1 in Knoxville. Okay, so that's something we're proud of. A lot of work that has gone into that. Dan Sparks is here, that's over our construction and engineering group. A lot of what made this possible is we've been putting in what we call fiber to the cell site. A lot of people think cellular networks are all wireless, but the fact of the matter is, without the wired component of the wireless network, the wireless doesn't work. Okay, so you have to have fiber to the cell sites to take that signal off your phone, that tower, to the landline to get it on a high-speed network to go to what I call the big I, the big internet for mobile internet services. So it takes all that to make that work. And so you're going to continue to hear more announcements about things like that, I believe, because what we also announced back in November, I've mentioned this before, but it's just a reminder about Project VIP, which is Project Velocity IP, or Internet Protocol, which means we're building more mobile internet and wired internet for our customers across the country. We're spending billions of dollars the next 3 years to continue to put fiber in places around the country. And then locally, let me just say this, I'm trying to get the word out, and I need you to help me on this. In Knoxville metro area, specifically in downtown Knoxville, if you have a need for your business for fiber-based services, we have plenty of fiber available. If it's not directly at your site where you need it today, talk to us, because we likely within a normal amount of interval time can get it to your facility. There's this misnomer. Yes, the question in the back, Mr. Edwards.
I heard he can't get it to the LNN station. I mean to the southern people.
Wrong, Mr. Edwards. We've already verified. We are, I won't say how many feet we're away, but we can do that with our normal interval. It's already been checked. You check that one off the list. If anyone happens to be looking at the Southern Railway, so help us get the word out. Honestly, there's this misnomer that there's not broadband services downtown that are needed, there's not fiber services. Wrong answer, okay? Because the reason I say that, from an economic development standpoint, we need to let people know that Knoxville has what Chattanooga has, honestly. Doesn't have the residential speed that they have. But from a business standpoint, we can do what needs to be done here to attract business and industry anywhere in this area, including the entire district that Senator McNally supports as well in the rural areas of Monroe County where I used to live and in other parts of Anderson County. But downtown, with this discussion that's been going on, because I think it was April 4th, I went to a broadband forum downstairs, hosted in the new entrepreneurial center. If you haven't been there, you need to go, about the downtown community talking about broadband. So that's there. All this couldn't be done, though, without good business environment in Tennessee. If Tennessee was not an attractive place for AT&T and other companies to invest in, with the regulations we have, we wouldn't be making the investments. And so we owe a huge thanks to people like Senator McNally and the other Knoxville delegation folks that go to bat for us day in, day out. And I sit on the Government Relations Committee with Susan and Jennifer and other people that we talk monthly, honestly, about issues that impact businesses here and what our state delegation can do and has done. And so there's dialogue going on all the time. So we want to say thanks to you personally, Senator McNally, and all the team that's down there helping us do what we need to do. And so we appreciate that. Just a couple words for those of you that might not know about Senator McNally. He is the chair of the Finance, Ways, and Means Committee, and he's also the chair of the Senate Rules Committee, and is a member of the Senate General Welfare Committee and Joint Fiscal Review Contract Services Committee. He's a Republican member of the Tennessee Senate and representing the 5th District. He can tell you more what that involves. Since 1977, served in the General Assembly. He's also, by trade, a pharmacist, very recently retired. He still does some part-time fill-in work, I believe, at Methodist Medical Center. So he has a good perspective on health care, so that might be some good thought about questions later in health care issues and things like that. So today, what Senator McNally is going to do is wrap up the legislative session that entered on April 19th and kind of give us a look ahead at the state budget for next year. So would you welcome Senator Randy McNally?
Thank you, Alan, and I very much appreciate the introduction and the very kind comments. I think it's important to mention that we have a very powerful East Tennessee delegation, of course, starting with Speaker Ramsey from up in Bluntful, Senator Crow from Johnson City is chair of the General Welfare Committee, Health and General Welfare. We like to just refer to it as General Warfare. It gets all the bills where there's battles between professions, the optometrists and ophthalmologists and those type of things. Also, Senator Massey here locally chairs the calendar committee. Senator Tager down in Roane County chairs the state local government committee. Senator Sutherland chairs the environment and tourism committee. So we have are well represented, I think, in the East Tennessee area, and it's also very important to note that we have a lot of very powerful House members that are served with us. Harry Brooks is one of the chairs of either education or higher education, and Ron Haynes is sort of one of the rising stars of the leadership. But you're very well represented. Bill Dunn chairs the calendar committee on the House side, and despite what the press says, we really do get along. I think there are three stories the press can write about. One is the clash of the Titans, and that's when they perceived that Governor Ramsey and Governor Haslam were at odds about something. The abuse of power is the second one. That's like when a legislator parks in a handicap spot, or has his wife go on a trip with him or something like that. And the last is the plan. You know what's going to happen. But a little bit about the plan, and I want to apologize like a baseball game. It's over when it ends. And we don't have any set times that we have to adjourn, but we do, after 90 days, we don't receive pay for any additional legislative days after that. So that's a very good governor on our stretching the sessions out. A little bit about the budget, and we have a $32.8 billion budget this year that passed in the last few days. Not a lot of discussion on it, but our revenues mainly come from state dollars, and that is being first is the sales tax, and then after that franchise and excise, and then a number of other taxes after that. The federal dollars make up a substantial chunk of the money we spend, and the biggest part of that is TennCare, which is a $9 billion program, and about $6 billion is federal money, and those are rough numbers. But this shows how the expenditures are divided up. Now, out of the state portion, what we tend to concentrate on is the state general fund, which is about $9 to $10 billion. There's other funds in there, such as state shared taxes, money we share with local government, cities and counties, transportation money, and other monies that we have. But the bulk, the $15 million, is in our state general fund, and that's what we're usually most concerned about in the state's budget. See, next slide. This shows what happened to us. We were moving right along, had $9.2 billion in revenue, and oops, all of a sudden 8.3, and then it got even worse at 8.1. This was during the Bredesen administration, and I want to compliment on him, Governor Bredesen, on the way he handled it. And rather than digging the hole deeper, he was able to, over a period of time, get us out. And actually, in January of 12, we reached where we were back in 07, 08. The problem there is that we lost about $350 million each year. That's the average growth in revenue. And we use that growth to fund things like the BEP, the increase in demand for TennCare, particularly during the economic downturn. We saw a lot of increase in demand there. But we were able to fill in partially with some of the stimulus dollars, but also cut back on a number of different other agencies. And this is where we were last year. This is this year's budget. That's based on a growth of about 3.89%. And that was the growth given to us by the funding board in December, excuse me. We have increased it due to some new revenues that came in that we weren't expecting. One was they released sort of the part of the tobacco settlement that they had held, and the other, we were able to bring in a lot more than we thought we would on the tax on HMOs, the premium tax on HMOs. This is where we look to be next year, which is approximately a little over 4% growth, and then this is just sort of a float number. We'll adjust that later on. But that's a picture of the state's general fund, and this downturn, we lost about $1.1 billion, plus we lost the growth in whatever revenue would have occurred in the 4 years. That's about $1.4 billion in growth if we look at in a normal time. The next slide. This shows the state's reserve fund. This is the rainy day fund, one of the big reserve funds we have. We had actually had about $700 million, dropped it down to a little under revenues turned around and start building up those reserves. This year, we put about 100 million in, about 50 million in the current year, and this coming year, about a little over 100 million in reserves. Now, we do have and recently changed a law that says that out of all new revenues, 10% has to go until the rainy day fund reaches 5% of the general fund. We upped that to 8%. Originally, we tried to do it to 10%, but actually, in compromises with the House, went with 8%. Our other reserve fund is 10-year reserve. That's the next slide. And put together these two reserve funds, we have a little under 700 million, and that's we had about 1.1, 1.2 billion prior to the downturn in the economy. So one of our goals is to raise that back up, and our ability really to survive another downturn is not what it was in 06, 07, mainly because of the less reserves the state has. The next slide. In going through the budget, both this year and last year, and a lot is the same with the Bredesen budget, with the exception of that one. We couldn't reduce the tax burden, and increase it in a few places. But first of all, we're required to balance the budget. That's under Article 2, Section 28 of the state's Constitution. There are some games that can be played, and we have done that. Back in 2000, 2001, we raised the revenue estimates, and that turned out to be a terrible thing to do. Using one-time money to pay for continuing expenditures, that was also done during that period. We did some of that during the economic downturn, but it was with the condition that we were actually making those one-time expenditures. If revenues did come up a lot more than we expected, then we could consider funding them next year. But people were sent out notices that, your funding will terminate after the next fiscal year. Investing in education and jobs, very important. Making significant deposits in the rainy day fund, and we just went through that. In the tax burden area, we reduced taxes about 43 million this year, and I've got a later slide that will show you what those are. In education, I've got a little more information on K-12 education, but in higher ed, we had about a $300 million capital outlay program. About 100 million of that went into the university system, the STEAM lab, as well as the life science building in Memphis, went into the University of Tennessee system, I should say. Also, the Complete College Act, we funded additional portion in that for 35 million, and also provided an additional 5 million for scholarships under the TSAC program. These are for the people that are the C and C+ students who don't qualify for the lottery, but who their needs qualify. See the next slide. The maintaining a good environment within the state. Tennessee ranks 48 in per capita debt, and I think only the Dakotas have less debt than Tennessee. We're 47th in per capita tax burden, and the states that appear to be ahead of us are states with large natural resources. We're AA rated by Moody's and Fitch, two rating agencies, AAA by Moody's and Fitch, and AA+ by Standard. Let's see the next slide. Some of the key budget initiatives that we've had. We eliminated the gift tax last year. Tennessee and Connecticut were the only states with both the gift tax as well as the death tax or inheritance tax. So we're eliminating phase one of the inheritance tax, where we took the exemption from 1 million up to 1.25 million. This year we're going to, this coming year, we've got money in the budget to go to 2.5. Next year, the exemption will be raised to 5, and the year after that, it'll be done away with. Also, we increased the exemption under the Halls tax for those over 65. It went from $26,200 to $33,000 for a single individual, and for joint filers, it went from $37,000 up to $59,000. Also, we passed a no state income tax resolution to completely get rid of the Halls tax. It would take about $200 million. It's a tax that was enacted in 1929, meant just to tax the rich. Now it taxes mostly just the elderly who have dividends in stocks and bonds, and are using that for their retirement. The problem with the Halls tax is that 5/8 of it goes to the state and the general fund. 3/8 goes back to the county and the city where it was generated. So there's a big debate about holding these locals harmless. In other words, putting in what they got this year and carrying it forward under the formula. And it's disproportionate, as one could imagine. Williamson County, I think Knox County and City have a fairly large number under the Halls tax, but the state portion is under 32 billion. The local is 72 billion, so it's almost half of that. The other tax that's rather onerous is the professional privilege tax. How many in this room pay it? Okay, so the rest of you aren't professionals. No, and evidently they went down the list of professionals, and this was in back in under Governor McWhorter when he was trying to find money to fund education, and figured out one, where were some of the groups that were violently opposed to income tax, physicians, dentists, pharmacists, those type of people. Teachers, they're trying to help the teachers. They left them out, but they're professionals. Nurses, they're not cool with the nurses. And you go through there, and there's some people that are taxed, and some people above them in income levels are not taxed. So it's very discriminatory. I asked the Attorney General about that. He opined that it was within the constitutional bounds that the legislature could do that. So, if you look, if Tennessee were to get significant revenues from internet sales tax, where should it go? And my answer is that it should go back to the people of the state. And professional privilege tax, eliminating that, eliminating the Halls income tax, reducing the sales tax. Some of those things are things I think we need to look at. Next slide. Some of the key budget initiatives. We provided $51 million for technology upgrade. This is new money. It had not been funded in previous budgets. Recurring, and that's for the local education agencies. They'll have to submit a plan on how they use it to upgrade their technology. $34 million. It's designated for capital projects. It will be distributed, I believe, on either an ADA or PPP basis. I think ADA basis. make above 138% of poverty, you'll be eligible to go to the exchange all the way up to 400% of poverty level. You'll be able to go through the exchange and get a supplement, or you'll get your insurance paid for depending on what your income level. If you make below that, you don't, which seems like the reverse, unless the states expand Medicaid. And the other thing is that if you have only been in this country less than 5 years, you do. If your income's below 138% of the poverty level. Why they did that, I don't know. You know, it was actually written into the bill this way. But even without these two expansions, without going into the health insurance exchange, without expanding the Medicaid population, $2 billion over the next 8 years, without going in. And that represents, although it's not even, but on an average, that would be $250 million. If our average growth revenue is around $350 million, well, you can see where that goes. And to what, you know, we're taking money away from education and safety and other things and providing health care for people. So that, I think Governor Haslam was very wise in not implementing the exchange and also in not jumping into the expansion. I think what he's proposing is something like Arkansas, is that we take the total dollars and then let the state apportion it among the people all the way from 0% of poverty up to 400%, and also put some co-pays and other things that we can manage here and control the expenses in. The next slide. And also, I'll mention which one of these are recurring. That means we don't have to continue to come back to fund them. The bids, this is for developmental resources. For providers, they've not had a rate increase in about 7 years. They had asked for a 5% rate increase. We gave them $2 million, $2 million rate increase. That translates into not quite 1%, about 1.85. The child advocacy centers, these are the centers that deal with child abuse, where they take a child and instead of bringing him to the police station and questioning him, they have a team that comes to what is in most cases a house, and they're able to, in kind of a family atmosphere, sit down in a non-threatening manner with an abused child and find out what's going on. We funded them with an additional 2,000. The state now funds them 15, so that would be 17 a year we fund them. They do a lot of their own fundraising. CASA, which is Court-Appointed Special Advocates Program, which actually I think saves the state legal costs. We increased other major initiatives that we had, the next slide will be workers' comp. We took that sort of out of the court, put it before, much like the state claims commission, put it before an administrative law judge. And our hope is to get the money to the worker faster and save a lot of the litigation costs that go in that really end up costing the employer and the worker money. Bill mill legislation, this was legislation Senator Yeager and I have worked on. This is sort of the second phase. After the first phase, they found a few loopholes, and we were able to crack down on those. But the pill mills are basically, usually it's an advanced practice nurse or a PA, or sometimes not even that. The one in Maryville we found had a pharmacy technician and a nurse's aide that were running them. A doctor gives them authority to sign prescriptions for him, and usually these are doctors that float around in various locations. And then for $300 or $400, you go in and you get OxyContin, usually it's OxyContin, hydrocodone, and Xanax. And the street value of those is around $150,000. So you walk out and you take part of it, usually, I think most of them do, and then you sell the rest of it, school kids, whoever. And there's a legitimate place for the practice of pain therapy, but not these places. I mean, people have gone in with x-rays of dogs. We require them to have x-rays, and they have an x-ray of a dog's spine. Look at it. Oh, yeah, 300 oxycodone they use, 300 Xanax. It's really, they're drug dealers. And we're requiring them to be registered. They have to have a physician on duty. We tightened up on the boards. We're looking through the controlled substance database. We're looking at who are the outliers, and it's pretty easy to tell. I mean, suddenly you've got a doctor that's writing 10,000 prescriptions for oxycodone. Well, that should send off an alarm bell. The boards then have to inspect and then report back to the registry. We give TBI access to the registry. We've done a lot of things to crack down on that, but that problem alone is then increasing crime, because when these people they sell to get the drugs, and they need money to buy them, and they'll break into houses and all sorts of things. The school voucher, that failed. There was an effort to really take the decision-making on school vouchers for charter schools out of the hands of the local school boards, and that did not pass in the Senate. It kind of killed the whole voucher bill. The public safety, that's a big issue that the legislature has worked on, and some of the money that we provided can be used for resource officers and others. Judicial redistricting also failed. That we had not done in over 30 years. We only have a 2-year window of opportunity every 8 years to do it, to look at the caseloads and find out. We've got some districts that are way under, some that are way over. The 2 that are way under in West and Middle Tennessee, the 2 that are way over, Williamson County and Rutherford County. The rest would stay the same. It only changed our total cities. Human trafficking, and also this is many times said crime, and we've had a number of bills that came through that address that, keeping someone under your control for the use of narcotic substances and things like that. State retirement system, and Finbar had asked me a question on that. Last year, we gave the cities and counties options going forward. They cannot change their plans going back, but they could go to different forms, either continue the form they have, which is a defined benefit plan, or go to a hybrid plan, which is a cross between a defined benefit and defined contribution, or go to a defined contribution plan. At the state level, we also changed it for new employees coming into the system, not existing employees, new. Coming into the system June of 2014, they will be offered a hybrid plan, which is a combination of defined benefit and defined contribution. It limits our ever-rising cost, and what we're seeing is, Finbar well knows, we're seeing the life of the individual extended out a number of years. I think it's close to 3 weeks every year that they are, their longevity is put at. And also, on the other side, we're seeing where we could count on pretty much 7.5% earnings on the plan. We're now seeing that down quite lower, and also the earnings appear to be quite erratic, difficult to predict. So we're stabilizing the state's plan. The state's plan is about 92% funded. That means if everybody cashed out, we got to pay them 92 cents on the dollar. We were 100% funded until the economic downturn. We went from 31 billion down to 23, and then we're back up to around 32, 33, but we have a liability of 35. So that's I think the last slide, which is questions. Now, I have to admit, my staff didn't I had trouble with electronics. In fact, I retired from pharmacy because of the computers and paper. But a little story, I was in the finance committee, conducting the finance committee a few years ago. And of course, it's all recorded and sent out over the state on TV, and all of a sudden this dog starts barking. I'm looking around, where's the dog? Suddenly I realized the noise is coming out of my phone, and my grandkids had changed my ringtone to the dog. I couldn't turn it off. Do this, and I couldn't get it off. And unfortunately, Senator Burchett, Mayor Burchett now, took great delight in calling me at an inopportune time. Fumble around trying to get my phone and get the thing cut off. Finally, I was able to get to my grandkids with a little bit of bribery, was able to get them to reset and teach me how to turn it on. But thank you. Question? Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about the, I guess, internet sales or remote seller legislation that's going through Congress right now in D.C. So do you feel like the state had the appetite to get on board with that, or that's the intent of the legislature in Tennessee to accept those requirements?
We're sort of already on board because we have a use tax, and everybody's supposed to pay it, and I won't ask who does. But if you buy something from LL Bean that doesn't have a nexus in Tennessee, or you buy a shirt while you're up in Washington and bring it down here and wear it, you are supposed to pay the use tax. And they do collect it on some of the bigger items that they can track, but they do a very poor job of collecting it. I think that if it does pass, and I think it'd be very difficult probably to get it to the House, but I think it creates an uneven playing field between brick and mortar businesses that are located here in Knoxville and Knox County, and out-of-state businesses. And I think it also puts the burden on the individual to pay the tax, which most of us don't do, so actually we're violating the law. I think you had a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
I think you all have done a great job of both administrations and consistently through great leadership in the House and the Senate. We've got the lowest debt per capita, certainly one of the lowest tax states. But there's what I'm trying to figure out is how we get past some issues. One, I'll set aside other than to mention the Commissioner of Highways says that our infrastructure needs is close to about $10 billion, and that roads and bridges and stuff that we've got to figure out a way to not let to go into failure. The other thing is, though, that last year in the DEP committee, there was a report on teacher compensation, and from my standpoint, I was trying to figure out how we recruit great teachers in the future and compete against other things. We're third from the bottom in the South, and the South is bottom in the nation. We're third from the bottom. We're currently at about 31 average across the board. To get to the mid-level of the South, we have to go to 49. And it's $100 million per $1,000 average increase. So to move Tennessee just to the average of the South is about $1 billion. And of course, there's more in public education than just that. And yet I know that Tennessee puts about half of its discretionary money into education, which is a huge amount of money. So how do we move the ball forward while remaining physically responsible?
Well, one thing that we're moving towards, and like I believe it's $35 million that we're giving for teacher salary for 1.5% increase, that money will be generated through DEP, but it'll come to the schools, and the schools will be able to determine how that money is to be given. In other words, a teacher could get nothing, a teacher could get 2% or 2.5% based on their performance. And I think that we're moving towards performance funding in education. We already have the model to assess teacher performance, and I think we're moving in that direction. The question about the highways, what we see is that the gasoline usage is going down, which means the gas tax, which is tied to that, is going down. Tennessee is still rated as, in comparison with other states, as having one of the better highway systems. But that doesn't mean there's room for improvement. Under this administration and somewhat under the previous administration, we've looked at more innovative ways. For example, Commissioner Shore is buying fuel on the spot market rather than signing a contract for a full year. And that way, when the price is low, he can buy a lot. When it's up, he can buy less. So there's, we're still going to probably have to figure out a better way to assess a user fee for highways, because people are using electric cars, which they don't pay any gasoline, chair of our education committee, and she has great insight into education. She's currently working with SCORE, and for you, those of you that are members or know a member, she'll be speaking the week after next at ETEC in Oak Ridge. So if any of you get a chance to go over there, I'm sure she'll be, she's an excellent speaker, a lot better than I am, and knows education inside and out. Yes?
Yes, with the governor not expanding Medicaid, what has to happen for his plan to be finalized? And do you think that that will happen before October 1 when the exchange opens?
What happens for his governor, the governor's plan to be finalized, that's really up to CMS and probably up to Shalala and ultimately to President Obama. It's an open-ended type thing in that the state can opt into it at any point. It doesn't have to be with the opening of the exchanges, as I understand it. There's still a lot of things we don't understand about affordable care, and we certainly don't understand some of the costs that will be. I think one of the slides that I had this year will be spending $350 million on TennCare or Medicaid. About $160 million of that is due directly to Obamacare. Part of it's the increase in premium tax on MCOs that provide services to TennCare. Part of it's the woodwork effect. When people go to these exchanges, they'll be directed first to the Medicaid program if possible. And there are a lot of people out there that, just will do that as they need services. They'll go to the exchange. So it's I think he's doing the right thing. I'm not sure, and I don't think Arkansas is really sure about what type of deal they got. What he'd like to do is take the money as sort of a block grant and then allow the state to develop the program and putting the emphasis on the lower income people, and then putting in things like copays and other cost control measures. We're a little bit different from most states in which we have managed care organizations that run the program, and they're at risk, and a few other states have that. Other questions? Well, I want to thank you all, and hope I didn't bore you. The budget's probably one of the least read documents in the state government, but I thank you, and I very much appreciate the job that each of you do in helping build Knoxville and building Tennessee. Thank you very much.
Thank all of you for coming. That ends our legislative briefings for this year. And more issues next
Thank you.